Actually, I got to recommend something to you because I hope you'll enjoy it. It's on radio and it's on television, but you can also stream it. And so it's at the moth, moth.org. And the moth has been going on for about 5 years now. And what they are is people tell stories 8 minutes long about something very significant that happened in their lives to an audience. And then they record it. And then it becomes part of the archives and it's preserved forever because it's a real, true experience. Now, the one I heard today was by a Dr. Lombardi. Dr. Lombardi is an infectious disease doctor in New York City. And Mother Teresa, the nun in Calcutta, was dying of an infectious disease. So if you know anything about the Mother Teresa's nuns, one, they only have 2 sets of clothes. One they wear and one they wash for the next day. And that's it. They don't have any refrigerators or any freezers because they have no food beyond the day that they eat. If they don't get donations to eat, they don't eat. They just comply completely on the blessings from God to feed and sustain themselves.
That's a little unrealistic.
What?
Never mind.
That's not the story. Anyway, the nun who founded them, Mother Teresa, was a European nun who taught at very exclusive girls' schools by her order taught throughout the world, Latin America, Europe, United States. Anyway, she read about what was going on in Calcutta, about the abject poor, and the fact that the people who were terminal and unable to take care of themselves were just left to the street, and they were picked up by the government and taken to a dump to die. So she went to Calcutta, she left the girls' schools and everything else, she started her own order of nuns, and these nuns have no worldly possessions, and she went around and picked up the dying and the sick, and she provided them with a clean bedding, clean clothing, and most of them were terminal anyway, so most of them died, the great majority. Anyway, she became so good at it that it spread throughout the world. She has today probably something like 300,000 nuns throughout the world who do this type of charity. They deal with the poor, and particularly the sick and the abandoned. Anyway, so she's in Calcutta, which is where the headquarters is, and she gets an infectious disease, and it's determined that she's dying. So they send to America, the United States, North America, and they contact this infectious disease doctor, Dr. Lombardi, and they ask him to come and treat Mother Teresa, who was the Mother Superior of the order. And he said it took 13 hours to get there. He said he was accompanied by 4 nuns on the plane. He was met by another 12 nuns when he got to Calcutta. And he was brought to the hospital room where Mother Teresa was, and she was really fading pretty fast. And he said that he started to remove her clothes to examine her, and the nuns kept pushing her clothes back on, so she couldn't examine her, because infectious disease, you've got to check a lot of vital signs. Anyway. And then he said he was exhausted, he couldn't even stay awake, and they had a hotel room for him, and he said the nuns escorted him out the hospital to a back door, over to his hotel room. He said he got something to eat, and he said he was really exhausted. He turned the TV on, and all the TVs in India were doing nothing but recording his arrival and his treatment of this woman who was revered in India by Muslims, Hindus, everybody revered Mother because she applied this care of the poor and the sick regardless of religion or anything else. So then he was sort of felt that it was really unusual. So he went back to the hospital the next day, and he said there were a group of doctors there. Some were Indian doctors who ran the hospital and the medical facility, and they had brought in this Italian doctor who was a specialist also in infectious diseases. And he said after examining Mother Teresa for 2 days, he concluded that the infection that she was suffering from was coming from a heart monitor that had been implanted in her, and that it is causing an infection, which is causing the infection, was killing her. The doctor from Italy he's there in a pair of khakis or shorts and a pair of sandals with socks on, and nobody in India wears socks with sandals, but he's there. And this Indian doctor has got state-of-the-nine clothing, perfect tie, perfect hairdo. He's got two assistants who stand there and help him. No, not right now, please. I'm on the air. And so he says to the group of ascended doctors who are actually the primary care physicians, these 20 or 30 Indian doctors, and he said, I think this infection is caused by this heart monitor and it's got to be taken out. The Italian doctor gets up and he starts talking. He says, there is no way that this heart monitor is infecting Mother Teresa. She is dying, and it is definitely not the heart monitor. So then they leave this room, and the Indian doctors come in. And they come back, these 20 or 30 Indian doctors. They say to the American, Dr. Lombardi, it's you. We're picking your diagnosis. And the Italian doctor's there. He's all up front and leaves, he get on the airplane and leaves, whatever. So then the doctors, these primary care doctors say to Dr. Lombardi, he says, now, you take out the heart monitor, pacemaker. You take out the pacemaker that's causing the infection. He said, I'm an infectious disease doctor. I don't do surgery. I haven't done surgery since medical school. They said, you take it out. And all this is done through interpreters, Indian American interpreters. So he goes, the next day he comes in. Mother Teresa is very close to death right now. So he makes an incision. He gets over the pacemaker, and he pulls the pacemaker out, and it comes out. But one of the electrodes is on the artery, and it's hooked in there. And it's supposed to be around the artery, but the artery has grown over it. So if you pull on it and you pierce the artery, she'll die in about a minute because that's the artery in the blood. And he pulls on it, and it doesn't move. And then, as he's saying in the story, remember he's telling the story, he says, I prayed to Mother Teresa for Mother Teresa. He said, I closed my eyes and I reached in and I pulled and it came out, the attachment. Sewed her back up. She started getting better. She lived another 8 years.
Oh.
That's a true story.